Welcome to another episode of the Reframe Podcast, Pandemic Edition. We are back again on a Zoom call with a very interesting guest today. He has a knack for trying multiple different things, and he's done some really good work in online digital media space as well as other kind of offline businesses. And the best thing about him is that he shares his secrets and he encourages other people to basically try out different things. And that's what we usually want to talk about in the podcast. So, Mohammad Khan, welcome to the Reframe Podcast all the way from Pakistan.
Thank you, and my pleasure to be here. That was a great introduction. I would copy that all over the place.
Well, I would say your tagline, I really like it. So you like to add venture into everything that you do, right? It's not
Yeah.
about adventure, but it's about
Yeah.
adding a venture to it. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
about that. Let's begin over there.
That's a good start. I think that's a good place to start. Adventure is always a good place to start. Um, um I've always been a sucker for good words and good wordplay. I fashion myself as a writer to begin with, so so adventure basically is my attempt at translating the Urdu phrase of harkat mein barkat, that there is blessing in movement,
Right.
and that's obviously and very painfully true. They say the world belongs to the bold, and the whole idea of adventure is, in fact, the whole phrase is just adventure, and
Hmm.
that's the name of the blog that I've been writing for, I don't know, 12,000 years now. And it's justadventure.com. I remember coming up with that uh, just adventure. And that was like, wait a minute, that just makes sense in so many different ways. That venture in itself is something that everyone wants to start. Whatever
Hmm.
you're starting is a venture, is a project. And adventure is something that is, the word adventure is something that you would want to do. But we, especially me, I mean, it's always like it's a more of a self analysis than anything else. It's that I've always been like complicating it and making it harder and making it too planned, or sometimes not even planned at all. Or there's this, what's that middle line? And the middle line starts with the just. You just
Right.
add venture. And if when in doubt, take action. When in doubt, just add venture. Do something, do a project, make it happen. You're going to fail, you're going to succeed, doesn't matter, but you will have an interesting experience. And of course, given that you have brains between your ears, you will learn from that as well, inshallah. So yeah, that's, and in fact, one more thing, I think I came up with that on the spur of the moment, in the sense that I was one of the rare interviews that I've done on national television here in Pakistan.
Hmm.
And the host, Jugan Kazim, asked me, um, that what's the story behind all of the micro adventures and the small businesses that I'm doing. And it just built from there, that harkat mein barkat, and it just started from there. And it became a good explanation that
Hmm.
usually comes after the fact. So yeah, that's my thing now, I guess. Justadventure.com. That's, yeah, I hope I've answered the question that you were
That
asking.
Yes, and that is very interesting. But I would like to know, where did it actually come from? Were you always in this mindset, or were you
Hmm.
a typical corporate guy and then moved into
That's
ventures?
that's a good. The word adventure I actually picked up, um, because it just fit the mold.
Hmm.
I've never been a corporate guy. I've been employed twice in my entire life. Both of them while I was at college. Both of them were like part-time gigs. Once as a
Hmm.
copywriter, once as a webmaster. I don't know if people now understand what a webmaster used to do, but but copywriter, of course, still people, I guess, understand easily. Um, so I've never been in the job world. I've always been experimenting with different projects, different ideas. As my guru, Richard Branson, would say, that
Hmm.
entrepreneurs are just people who live who have formalized curiosity. It's just a formal way
Right.
of being curious. And I love that definition. I don't know if you use these exact words, but I use the formalized curiosity as a good reminder of that. The word adventure is just a um, I wouldn't even take it that seriously. I mean, it's just copywriting in effect, and
Uh-huh.
it's just to give you that idea that if you change your perspective even a little bit, the experiment becomes the adventure. The journey from Lahore to Pindi, which is usually very boring for a lot of people, can become an adventure. And if you just use that word and if you use that mindset, you can start finding those little takeaways and those little moments that really add to the whole bouquet of experiences that you're
Right.
already having. So so it's more of a reminder than anything else. And I think it was more like a segue into it. I was not like a I think we had this discussion before for that way. I'm not a guy who believes in taking leaps of faith in that sense
Hmm.
that you just burn your boats and go. No one does that. No one
Same here.
smart enough
Yes.
ever does that. It's a myth. And but going on an adventure, see that changes a bit of things. You Because an adventure means that you have some plan for it,
Right.
and it means that there is some destination related to it. Although an adventurer, really, because I've met professional adventurers as well. Although I have this thing here reminding me all the time that I'm a professional adventurer with a misspelled thing, guilty as charged. But I've met people who actually are professional adventurers, mountaineers,
Right.
bikers, travelers, and they have been able to wrap a business or a monetization effect around their passion of whatever adventure they're doing. Even they are not really concerned about the destination. That's such a cool thing to just They are also very much focused on how they're going to do that, the process. And
Hmm.
that just gels in absolutely perfectly with how you are supposed to be doing whatever you're doing, that you have the goal in mind, but you have to break it down into the journey. You have to break it down into the processes that you will be following to reach that destination, talking about goal setting and talking about achieving whatever you want to achieve.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's
That's such an important perspective, and I think interestingly enough, a lot of people ignore these things because let's talk a little bit about the fear element in
hmm,
adventures, whether it is adventure for the sake of adventuring or touring,
hmm,
or is it whether it is related to businesses or even
hmm,
personal development. I talk a lot about personal development, and that's where a lot of adventure comes
hmm,
in. But then there's a
hmm,
lot of fear factor involved. I'll take your example of traveling between two cities, just for a
hmm.
very global perspective. When you say between Lahore and Pindi, that's essentially a distance, a very boring journey, as you said,
Yeah,
between two cities, and that can apply
yeah.
to any part of the world. But, some people would not want to make it adventurous, would not want to stop and enjoy the view
Hmm,
because of their internal fear of not going off track. And that's where you
hmm,
talk about whatever you're doing in your life, you stop and enjoy the view. You stop and experience the journey. It's
hmm.
all about the journey. The lessons that you learn in life comes from the journey, not the destination, right? So
100%. 100%.
but what about the fear element, and how do people cope up with that fear factor? Specifically diving into, so let's specify it for young professionals who are just entering the
Hmm,
professional market. We
hmm,
see so much of competition in all industries, so much of peer pressure. Now, we're talking to our teenagers, telling them to align towards what they want to
hmm,
be when they
hmm,
graduate from such a young age.
hmm,
Essentially, environment around us is negating that adventure, and that's
hmm,
creating a lot of fear in people. We'll move in the later part of the podcast. We'll move towards people who are already in a particular field, have spent decades in their industry, and now they want to add some venture and some,
hmm,
uh,
hmm,
maybe not exactly jump or a leap of faith, but try out different things. We'll come to that in a later
hmm,
part. But let's start with the young professionals entering into the practical world.
hmm. Um, Fear. must always be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest lessons I've personally learned. I possibly learned it the hardest way one could learn it. I'll share the story with you, but but the thing is, well, let me just start with the story here. A couple of years back, well, a lot of years back, I actually had planned that adventure, which was a pure adventure of going on a mission to run my
Mm-hmm.
first triathlon. Now, we talked a bit about this before, where, of course, in Lahore, Pakistan, there's no such thing as a triathlon.
Right.
And when I came up with that idea, that the whole question was, what can I do that
Right.
will be extremely challenging for me, both financially and physically? I did not have the money to travel the
Mm-hmm.
world, anywhere in the world, to do a triathlon, or even the fees for the triathlon is quite expensive, given that it's just a race. And I did not have at that time, especially, the physical fitness to pull even a smaller triathlon off. So I gave myself that challenge. I gave myself a time frame and like an adventure, and I did that. And by God's ultimate grace, I was able to go to Abu Dhabi eventually. And the story is that I was, like, one day before the race, they bring you out to the area we're going to start, and they allow you to do the swim. Now, a triathlon, people who don't know, is a swim, a bike ride, and running all in the same event. And I was running the shortest one. So it's 750 meters of swimming, about 40 kilometers of cycling, and then 5 kilometers of running. Now, I've been practicing swimming, and I was scared the most about swimming, because swimming, like unlike the other two sports, you don't have much margin of error for swimming. If you get tired cycling, you can stop cycling. If you get tired running, you can start walking. If you get tired swimming, you die. So the margin of error is like not there. So I was very scared of that. That's fear, right? So, but I was like, okay, it's part of the game. Let's play the game. So I went there, and I remember one day before the race, I had paid up all that money. I've traveled. I bought my cycle. I've been saving up.
Mm-hmm.
I fought with my family. I've done all of those crazy little things to make this project happen. And I'm there. And that was the first time, one day before the race, that I ever tried to swim in open seas, because the triathlon
Right.
was planned for open seas. And I knew that. But of course, being here in Lahore, you don't have open seas. You only have open
Mm-hmm.
canals. But anyway, um, um, when I remember, just I couldn't swim. I've been swimming like 750 meters here in Lahore in a swimming pool, but I couldn't even put my head down. And there's this people who actually experienced this. I've talked about this to a lot of other people as well, and they've shared similar stories. That this word in Urdu, the habit. There's this habit of the sea. There is this horrific calm expanse that just there, and you just get. I was like completely. There was this primal fear that I couldn't just put my head underwater. And I remember standing there, and I'm like, wow, I won't be swimming. I am here, uh, and I'm standing here. And had this been in Lahore, I would have quit. That's how fearful I was at that point in time. And and that's again a very, very ugly insight you get into yourself. That, wow, had this been in Lahore, I definitely would have come up with an excuse. I would have fallen
Thank you
sick.
very much.
I would have even got into a fight or what. Yeah, and but now I'm here. I can't really escape that easily. And I was standing there, and then I met a guy. He was at that time 62 years old. Marty, he's still my friend on Facebook, and we chat on and off. He was there also for the triathlon from the UK. We are in Abu Dhabi right now, right? And he flew in from UK to do the triathlon, a 62-year-old guy. And because I was so fearful, I was like, I have to talk. There was no one here. There was no friend network, no family network I could talk to, people who would understand this kind of problem. And I remember I just chatted up with him, and I said, listen, this is the problem I'm having. And this is the first time I'm seeing open seas, and tomorrow is the race. And he started laughing. He said, yeah, that can get very scary very quickly. I said, yeah, but what do I do? And he said, you know what? I swim in like 3-degree temperature, large wave waters open seas in the Isle of Man and the Isle of Wight in the UK. That's where I do my triathlons. I've been doing triathlons for 25, 30 years, he told me. And this is one of the calmest seas I have ever seen in my life. It's not even, I won't even qualify it as a sea, because it was like in a lagoon kind of a thing in Abu Dhabi, and it's very calm.
Yeah.
And I went for a practice swim right now in that sea, and I was still scared. You don't eliminate the fear, you swim with it. And just that fact was so like revealing for me, that this guy has done the scariest of the scariest things, and now he's here in the calmest of the calmest things. I think he can still sense that tiny bit of fear, surfacing his head, and he's like, yeah, okay,
right.
He has befriended that fear. So a lot of people, when they're trying to do something that they have not done before, fear must be there. If you're not seeing it, if you're not being fearful, you're missing it. It will come. So find out where you're scared and internalize it, and, account for it, practice for it, make fail safes for it. I mean, try to limit the downside, and then just take the leap, because it's fear has to be there. And that's what courage is. It's not that you eliminate fear, you do take actions in the face of fear. And the bottom line, the final point to your question, I've been telling the story forever, it seems. The final point to that question is that whatever you're thinking of doing, you will have to be courageous to do that. It won't happen otherwise. It won't happen because you got lucky. It won't happen because, you just felt like it. You would have to get you have to get comfortable with risk.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I just would like to add that I believe we should work towards, and that's what courageous is, working against your fear, not to eliminate it, but like you said, use it as a jump start, and then work towards improving your circumstances, your personal maybe preparations to overcome that fear. But I think one thing that people should really think about is to not to be afraid of failure. The fear of failure basically pushes people not to try things. So my perspective and maybe you can shed more light on it, given that you have tried so many things. If you were afraid of failing in some of your ventures, you probably may never have even started them. Right. So I think I want to teach the world in general to forget about fear of failure. They say fail fast and move on. That's one of the things. Without fearing the failure, just try it. Just keep on trying things. Not everything is supposed to be your calling. But the only way to find your calling is to try out.
Yeah.
Right. The easiest thing to do is to do nothing.
Yeah, that's in fact the scariest thing to do. But to your point, about having a result in mind and then doing it is one thing. Not getting the result that you were expecting is another thing.
Correct.
But telling yourself that you have failed is a completely different thing. That's why in fact the word adventure fits in, because a better word here would be experiment. You see, if you approach your life as a scientist, you can never fail. Think about this. What does a scientist do? They set up an experiment. They have a hypothesis. They say, okay, we're going to test this, and this is the result we are expecting. And then they set up the experiment. And then the results come. But it can either go two ways, right? They can either confirm their hypothesis, or they can get a result that is completely like, what the hell happened?
Right.
Both of them are results. Both of them helps them readjust the experiment to get the kind of result they were after, or get a feedback to adjust their further experiments.
True.
So that is why I used to think that I would start giving away white lab coats to to my students and my members that, hey, just wear this to remind yourself that you are a scientist and your life is the experiment. And that's how you have to, that's how much distance you need from the results. Do not get emotionally involved in the outcome. And that's a very subtle difference, because a scientist is very much invested in the result, but only so much so that he can run the experiment again and improve the experiment again. So that distance is very important, even in an adventure, even in a venture, in a project, in a business. We talk about, you know, pivots and all that. You have a show named after pivot,
right?
This whole idea of pivoting is exactly that you're adapting your model, your business model, your adventure model, your experiment based on the market reaction, based on the feedback you're getting, and you're still having a good time because you have not fallen in love with the product. You have fallen in love with the process, and that's the key difference. And if you are able to internalize that, I mean, I imagine again a story from an adventure, a real adventure, in the sense that we went actually on a bike trip, motorbikes from here, from Lahore to Punjab Pass, China, up in the Himalayas.
So just for
did
perspective, let's put it all in perspective for our audience. So you're
Yeah.
traveling how many kilometers?
Oh, yeah, like half of Pakistan. I don't exactly know the kilometers, but it's there are 14 8,000ers in the world. 8,000er is a mountain that is above 8,000 meters.
Right.
There are 14 of them only, 8,000ers in the world. All of them are in the three ranges, the Hindu Kush, Himalayas, and the Karakoram, that, of course, is in the north of Pakistan. So that is the kind of terrain change that you see going from the plains of Lahore, and then you're climbing up to like this incredible creation of the Almighty, that it's just the scale is scarily different. Let me just put it this way. So we plan to go from on motorbikes and not like
Khunjra
China
Pass
border.
is
The Pakistan-China border.
All right.
Right on top of the mountains, and it's like one of the highest matted roads in the world. They also have the highest ATM placed there. I mean, that ATM that they're on the pass is the highest ATM on the planet, or something like that.
Wow!
And we actually were able to do a transaction over there as well.
Oh, that's great.
So, but the point is that five friends from here, five crazy people, decided to go on bikes from Lahore to Khunjra. Now, we actually tried that twice. The first time we tried that, we were all the way up till, like, we got rain on the way from Aptabad all the way up to Bisham Killa on the KKH, the Karakoram Highway, a world-class road in itself. We found rain for 3 consecutive days, and we had to stop for a day in Aptabad to try to, delay the rain, but it just won't stop. So on bikes, we actually had waterproofing on us, but it failed because 3 days of rain, no waterproofing is going to stop that water from entering everywhere.
Right.
So we were just like blown away by fatigue, by this like constant shivering in the cold, and we were on bikes, and it was crazy, right? And then when we reached Bisham Killa, which is
already an extreme cold environment, and you add rain to that.
Yeah, of course. I add rain to that, and you are on motorbikes on that rain, on like highways of Pakistan, where a truck driver doesn't know he's driving a truck or a bike or a cycle, or he's having a nap. It can be anything. And so that's another fear. But that's not it. That adventure, which was already going south as far as the destination is concerned, literally. I mean, we're trying to go north, but that's a different joke. But we reached halfway. Instead of 1 day, it took us 4 days. And we were already off plan completely. And we were like, what the hell? What are we going to do now? And we were sitting at Bisham Killa, and that is when we were having lunch there. That is when one of the biggest earthquakes Pakistan has ever seen hit us.
Oh.
Now, this is not the 2005 one.
Uh-huh.
2005 one, may God protect us all, is the
Uh-huh.
one that
Right.
uh, killed more than 100,000 people just in Pakistan.
Yes.
This one was the same on the Richter scale, pretty much
Mm-hmm.
the same on the Richter scale as that one. And this, I think,
Wow.
was in 2000, I think 13, 14, maybe around about this time.
Uh-huh.
But we can find out, like, it was like a big earthquake. And we were having lunch in Bisham Killa on one of the peaks of a bloody mountain while that
Mm.
earthquake happened in those mountains. And we
Wow.
saw these like bloody, like mountains almost, it felt that they were exploding because the landslides coming in from the mountains on the sides were as if they just exploded. And we all thought we are dead. I mean, it was a horrifying experience for all of us there who were on that road on the side having lunches or whatever.
Mm.
And the odd 150 people who were like okay, we're gonna die. But God has other plans, and of course we survived. And then we had to come back
Mm-hmm.
because the roads up front were completely like
Blocked. Yeah.
devastated by the earthquake. Um, but here's the thing: we set out to reach Hunza.
Mm-hmm.
We were unable to do it, but it's still an adventure.
Right.
It was
Of
still
course.
one of the things that binds the friends together. We talk about it. We laugh about it now. We
Mm-hmm.
share stories about it. And we're probably going to keep doing that till the day we die. Uh,
Right.
but we didn't get what we were after. We got it
Right.
next year, by the way. That's when we went
Uh-huh.
to Kunjarab Pass. But but that was still a bona fide venture that we did. We learned a lot from. We saw things that we really didn't wanted to see, but we were shown in terms of earthquake and devastation and all that. The fear levels were, through the roof. But we were okay. Next year we're gonna try again. It was not that, oh my God, we are
Mm.
vested so much into this that we have to do this. Although that kind of talk did come there, but
Mm-hmm. Uh,
the idea is that once you approach it as an experiment, even a massive change in results is
right.
still just a result. And and
Mm.
and and to top this chain of thought, it's not that you don't fear, you must not emotionalize failure. It's
Mm.
also that you must not pay attention to the successes as well. That
Right.
distance applies to both things. Otherwise, if you pay attention to the successes you have, you will have almost as big a head as mine. And if you and you will start slipping because you're like, hey,
Mm.
I got this, whereas no one has ever got this. And if you're fearing failure, you will also, of course, be stuck because you will be scared of trying and doing the experiment. So
Mm.
consider this as an experiment, and you're the scientist. No,
Right.
let's play. That's yeah.
That's a great story. And let's talk a
Hmm.
little bit about
Thank
motivation.
you.
What motivates you to go through these ventures? And how would you, uh, how would you recommend people to be motivated? We talk a lot about being self-motivated and then looking at smaller things in life and then, taking the time to cherish what we have and then use that as a motivator. But then how do people actually do it? Because the way I see it, a lot of people will start something and then at some point in time, because of things that we talked about, like fear or too much of
Hmm.
vested interests in a particular result and not being able to achieve that result, they get demotivated. And when they get demotivated, they
Hmm.
just give up. So
Hmm.
somehow these are interconnected. I don't think they should be interconnected. If you are demotivated, I think you need to realign your compass. Maybe it's the wrong thing that
Hmm.
you're looking for. you know l-
Hmm.
you could think that you're demotivated when you did not make it to the Punjab pass the first time round,
Hmm.
but then
Hmm.
that did not demotivate you. That actually motivated you
Hmm.
to try it again the next year,
Hmm.
because you realigned yourself.
Hmm.
So, if I ask you what motivates you to go through these, and you have been through multiple ventures, let's take this little bit of time just also to tell our audience what kind of ventures have you been doing and what is
Hmm.
motivating you to do those ventures.
Um. Well, from a venture perspective, I once wrote an article many years back, and I call it like 15 ways you can earn money, but with a
Uh-huh.
twist. And the twist was that I had used those all 15 ways
Uh-huh.
to earn money. Um, the venture side of I've done dairy farms, I have done agriculture, I have sold milk, I've sold cakes, I've sold business consultancies, I have sold presentations, I've sold training workshops, I have sold
Oh,
website design, I've sold copywriting. There's a significant list of things that I've
it's such a
sold.
vast spectrum.
That's why now yeah. And uh, that was more of a stumbling thing. You know, I love this phrase that when you stumble, turn it into a dance. When we were growing up, um, I was stumbling all over the place. And I mean, I'm telling you my story that I'm not the guy who has a plan. No one really is. Once we write about it, once we talk about it, it may seem that, oh my God, he actually planned all of this and he just
Right.
step one, step two, step three, and he was done. Um, Not really. Um, I stumbled and I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this like a child would. I want to do this, do this, do this, do this. And the only way I could rationalize it to my family, to my friends, to myself was that if I could earn something from it, then it seems that everyone was okay with it. They're like, oh,
Right.
okay, if you're earning money from it now, then it's okay. So, so I was like, okay, let's turn that into an experiment and finance my own little curiosity experiments. For example, I remember I sold milk here in Lahore for 5-6 years, and that was an experiment because I wanted to see that because I love marketing, I love the psychology of why we do what we do things, and marketing is like the monetizable aspect of that interest. But because you talk about why people do what they do, so I remember starting a small little milk
Uh-huh.
distribution here in Lahore because I saw this like, wait a minute, there are two just brands in existence. One is like the UHT, the Nestle's and the Alpers and the Angros of Lahore and Pakistan, like big companies in a box. They give you milk, UHT treated UHT
Right.
milk. And on the other end of the spectrum is what we call the Gawala, the
Yes.
guy who will come on the cycle and give you
Yeah.
milk that is not pasteurized, of course. Um, the milkman here, of course, is not doesn't pasteurize milk. We do it like the home people at home. They boil the
Yeah.
milk when it arrives and all that. So there were these two just areas, brands, if you may, market segments that were being served by just these two brands. And I was like, okay, what if I brand the Dodi? I used to call it. Dodi is like Urdu for milkman. And I was like, what if I brand this guy? And
Right.
I think this experiment was done, I don't know, 8 years ago or something, like long time back. Back then, there was no Prima in the market. There was no Anhar in the market. Like the market was not there yet. And so I started that experiment. And lo and behold, within the first month, I was like doing great. Alhamdulillah. It was very profitable. We were selling like 300, 400 liters a day, home delivery. It was fine.
Wow.
Did that for 5-6 years. Now, the reason I did that was because, first of all, I had time because I was not doing a job. That's a big.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, let's see if it works. Had it not worked, I would have been like, okay, I had an experiment money in place because money is involved.
Of course.
That becomes tricky. So I was trying to cover the downside. The person I hired to do the job, I was like, okay, if this thing doesn't work, I'll probably hire him as a driver, maybe for another project. So I had some semblance of a plan, but of course, at the end of the day, it is higher risk than doing a 9 to 5 in a government department, for example. So it will be higher risk. It's not saying that, oh, nothing is just, oh, no, it's not higher risk. You just do whatever you have to do and it will be all okay. Not really. The stories that you have heard of things that have worked, they're like 5% of the other stories that did not work.
True.
So, excuse me. So let me just.
Sure.
So that is we have to, well, that's how I guess I stumbled into wrapping businesses or monetizable areas around an opportunity or a hobby or a passion. That's why I actually ended up teaching people how you can turn your hobby or passion into an online business, because that's what I ended up doing. That's what I stumbled into.
Right.
um, for people who are trying to uh, do this, there is really only one advice, if I may. If even for a moment you put me in a position where you want to take my advice, God forbid, and
Mhm.
God may protect you, um, it's like, give it a shot. Let's see what happens. You get that protocol. I call it the protocol of superior beings,
Mhm.
which is hit and trial, which is the experiment mindset. That, okay, set it up and let's see what happens. And even the biggest names you could think of, they fail on a regular basis, but because they have covered the downside. And when I say
Right.
downside, like, the risk is relatively minimal. It's
Mm.
affordable for them in time, in money, in resources, or network, or whatever. It's manageable. So they're like, okay, if it fails, that thing is gone. Okay, fine. So what? Move on to the next. We get too much vested.
True.
I talk to a lot of people. Many of them, they're like, hey man, I got this business idea and I've been thinking about this for 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years,
Mm.
and I'm going to do it and it's going to work. I'm like, wow, that's, hey, listen, you've been thinking about this idea for 8 years, 10 years. You are earning right now in your job, say, this guy is earning, say, 300,000 rupees a month. That's a significant amount of money here in Lahore. He's good at his job. He gets paid
Right.
well. And now you're going to leave the job to start this business thinking that you got this figured out because you've been thinking about it for 8 years.
Right.
But no business plan survives first contact with the customer. That's like gospel for the entrepreneur. That's like, yeah, of course.
Right.
I mean, it's just an assumption. Every business
Mm.
plan is a set of assumptions. You may assume things, and then you take it to the market, and you just sit back and watch your assumptions just fall into place or fall all over the place.
Right.
And then you readjust, and then you go again. You readjust, and then you go again.
Right.
If you are expecting it to succeed the first time out of the gate, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're not covering the emotional downside that
Right.
you will face, because failure is not something that is emotional. It's a result. You tried
Mm.
this, it didn't work. Okay, you adjust a bit, you try again, didn't work. You adjust a bit, try again. Pivot, pivot, pivot. So what?
Yes.
It's that's the way you have to literally just do it. You have to take that step.
Hmm. That's so interesting. And I really would want to put it out as an advice from you, because
At your own risk
not
and a
to,
little bit of mine as well. That's fine.
yeah. But there's another element to it, and which is when people are, let's say, established in a career, when people have
Mhm.
responsibilities, when people have families to feed, when people have bills to pay. And at some
Mm.
point in time, they may think that I have an idea which I would like to try. Maybe I would like to diversify my field or completely change, turn around. Maybe they realize they have not been loving their jobs, and they've been doing it to pay the bills. And at some point in time, they will want to do something that they enjoy, that they love, that is their passion. And that would involve going back multiple steps in terms of the finances, and they're not able to do it because of the financial commitments, but because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, money matters, right? And when you're talking about those kind of people, my advice, and then I will hand it over to you, my advice is, of course, I don't believe in leap of faith without a bungee cord. You have to plan
Mm.
it, you have to jump at the right time from the right cliff, but make sure that your bungee cord is not so long that you hit the rocks at the bottom, but also not so short that it doesn't let you go to where you want to
Nice,
jump to,
nice. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but then how do people revamp. I talk a lot about it in my other videos. In my our podcast is also related to this motivation and inspiration. Uh, featuring people such as yourself who have done it. Who are living proof
Hmm.
of that it can be done.
Hmm.
But at the same time, what is your advice? How do people plan that jump?
Hmm. I teach a course, the 5-week challenge, and the first module of that course, and this is not a plug for the course. The first module is, I call it, find your business. You first have to do the exercise of finding your business. You may think that your idea is world class. It probably is. Chances are it's not. But it absolutely does not matter. Ideas are dime a dozen, not even
Right.
that. Ideas are worthless. The world belongs to the bold, the world belongs to the one who executes on the ideas. That's fundamental truths. I'm not even willing to argue on those because they are established, and
Right.
that's something that's like, yeah, that's there. You have to come at
And
it
that's
from that
practical.
perspective, number one. Yeah. Practical in the sense, I don't like the word practical because then that word can be used other places where I don't want it to be used. But because there is about a time where you don't need to be. You need to be like almost like crazy, like
No, by
not
practical, I
practical at
mean
all.
taking action.
Yeah. Like I said, over here it works because it means to actually do things, that you
Right.
are doing things. So the first thing that you need to do, if you have an idea that you think is worthy of a side hustle or an experiment or an adventure in the world of money making, entrepreneurship, or whatever, even if you're doing a job or whatever, is to first take a pen, take a piece of paper, write it down, what you're going to sell. Write it
Right.
down. You're like, of course I know what I'm going to sell. No. You know it in your head.
Yes.
Anything that's in your head qualifies as an idea. And we've already
Right.
said that ideas are dime a dozen, doesn't matter. They don't do anything. They
Right.
don't do anything unless they are at least somewhere in the physical form in front of you.
True.
So bring that idea out, put it on a piece of paper, and say, okay, what is the next step that I can do to make this a reality? And the next step that you have to do is finding your business. That if that idea has a market and is something that you would see yourself doing 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years down the road, and that you are actually able to execute on it. So there are three things here. There is your interest in it, your resources or your skill set to actually execute on those ideas, and the market. Because only two things you can control in these three things, right? Your interest levels and your skill set. The market is the market is the market.
Right.
Market will decide, market will tell you if the combination of these two things it's actually worth it or not. And that's what we're trying to do, being an entrepreneur, being someone who's being an adventurer. That's what you need to be, right? You need to be a pro hobbyist. You need to turn pro on your hobbies, that you need to skill up on the thing that you're interested in. Skill up in what way? Skill up in a way that the market will pay you for. A lot of people tell you that, hey, live with passion, or not live with passion, that follow your passion. Well, and then they give the example of Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs did this speech where he tells people to follow your passion, whereas he did not follow his passion.
Yes.
That was not what he did. People miss that, because he followed his passion, which was leading to a market. That's the passion he followed. Other passions of walking barefoot on campus, of doing Zen meditation, of all that other things that he was very much into and very much his passions, he did not do those. He found that overlap. And that's why you have to start from there. Does your idea translate onto paper, and it still makes sense when it's on paper? Because a lot of ideas here, they don't make sense when they're here. So, and then how are you going to productize it? Are you going to sell a physical product? Are you going to sell a digital product? Are you going to do an affiliate thing? What business model? And is there a market for it? You can spend 6 months, and in the case of my friend, you can spend 8 years thinking of an idea and still don't know. Because when I asked him that, do you think there is a market for it? He was like, of course, look at that guy, look at that guy, look at that guy. I said, yeah, but do you have a market for it? Will people come to you to buy from you? Do you think you can access that market? He did not have an answer. So don't think about things,
Right.
put them on paper and do something about it. So that's have that plan. And once you have that plan, that's momentum. That'll give you that energy from the back that, okay, I've done this. Now maybe I can just, put up a website. Maybe I can ask 5 of my friends that, hey, if I bring this up, will you buy it?
Right.
Maybe I can, get 10 people to sign up, and then I can tell them later that if I'm releasing it or a pre-release or something. Do something. You must have things you have done. And of course, I'm talking to people and a lot of people have these ideas and they don't have a step 1, step 2, step 3, right? It's a step 1. You don't need a step 3. First, just focus on the step 1. Step 1 is make sure that your idea is translatable into a productizable business. A lot of azables in the last sentence.
Right. Great advice, Mohammed. And before we move on, I just want to add that people have to realize whatever they're passionate about may be possible, but they will never find out until they try it. And to try it, it has to be, like you said, something physical in front of them with an action plan. And we talk a lot about, managing their time, optimizing their routines to be more productive. And I understand that there's a lot of challenges with people who are in a job. We, especially post-pandemic, we say, 9 to 5 is dead. It's 24/7 because now people are digitally connected and they're expected to be available at all times. So that is a challenge. That is a challenge. And to get through that, you need to optimize your time. You need to be able to figure out how you're going to spend time on what your passion is, what you're developing into a side hustle. And for that, I think a lot of your network also helps. As they say, network is your net worth. And so
100%.
hang out with like-minded people, hang out with people who share or at least understand your passion, or who have done something like that. Hang out with people who have gone through similar situations. Maybe they will tell you, especially, there's a lot to learn even from so-called people who have failed in their executions, because then they will tell you what not to do. So no advice is bad advice. It's just about how you apply it. And just to carry on that thought, have you had, while you have been venturing into different areas, while you have been growing in your career or in your personality or on who you are now, have you had mentors? What are your thoughts about mentors? Do you believe in mentorship in the first place or not? Or do you just believe that people should just experience and move on? And lastly, are you mentoring somebody as we speak, or do you believe in that mentor-mentee relationship?
A good question. First of all, I do not like the word mentor, because this means that if you have a mentor, then you are a mentee, which is just a weird word. So let's just drop the mentor-mentee thing for a moment. Let's go to the basics. Let's talk about a teacher and a student, right? Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So if anything, the first thing that I have always tried to do, and I've been doing this for a long time now. I don't know which teacher taught me this. Of course, everything that I know is taught by someone. And many of them I remember, many of them I don't. And by God's ultimate grace, I've been exposed to people who are willing to share information. And so I don't know where I learned this, but it's the best thing I could do. It's like, wow, whoever came up with this, brilliant. And what is that? Whatever project that you're trying to do, whatever life that you want to live, find out someone who's doing what you're doing, number one.
Exactly.
Number two, learn from him. Make him your teacher.
Right.
Now, here's the beauty of this. Like, I would say that, bhai, main ustaad dhoondne ja raha hu. That's my thing. That's like, okay, I wanted to start a dairy farm. I will find a teacher. I want to start online courses business. I will find a teacher. I want to start corporate training. I will find a teacher. I want to start whatever. I will find a teacher.
Right.
That's the first thing I will do. Because of course, the benefits are obvious. I mean, like you will shortcut years and years of difficulties and problems, years and years.
True.
And you will only be taller standing on the shoulder of giants.
True.
So it's I don't know why anyone would say that you don't need a teacher. I don't know who actually goes around saying that. But the problem is that what kind and how, what are those nitty-gritties? How does that work? Anyone that you can learn from in your field may be teaching it, may not be teaching it. Does not matter. It is always the student's job to make teachers. There are no teachers in the world. You cannot decide right now that, okay, from today on, Mohammad Khan is going to be a teacher. Impossible. That's not possible. That doesn't work that way. Teachers are a result of students. It's not the other way around. It's the student who decides, okay, I want to learn something. Who can I learn from? And the person they learn from is the teacher. Period. That's the total relationship dynamic.
Right.
One can say that, hey, I want to teach something. Where are the students? And they're going to go and try to find students. They can find students, but they can't make students.
True.
I can make you my teacher.
True. Yes.
By learning something from you. Right? And you will not be able to make me your student unless I agree to learn something from you.
True.
So it's literally a unilateral relationship. So it's your job to find teachers. And in today's world, by God's ultimate grace, it has become incredibly easy to do that.
Oh, yes.
You don't need to travel thousands of kilometers to meet people. Although people who now we talk about, the greats of the past, the ancient wise people, they would travel thousands and thousands of kilometers on camelbacks to meet a teacher. Just to spend 2 days with that teacher, they would do all of that. And you're skipping YouTube videos like it's no tomorrow. So hang on. We need to first ask, what are we trying to do? Then find where those teachers hang out, people who have done what we are trying to do. And then consume all of their content. That's how, I mean, you can, initially, you can like look at all of those guys, but then you pick one, maximum two. And then you go deep. You know, I'm listening in the self-help world. I'm listening to Tony Robbins. I'm listening to Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm listening to Grant Cardone. I'm listening to Qasim Ali Shah, and I'm listening to Kassar Abbas. And no, you listen to them, but you have to go deep. Pick one.
Yeah.
And then just do whatever they're, because it's
what resonates
their teachers.
Best with
That's
you.
their job. They have made it their job. Yeah. And then go deep. So whatever business that you're trying to do, whatever enterprise that you're trying to do, see people who have done similar things. And if they've written a book, buy it. If they have a course, buy it. If they, or at least bribe them to a coffee. And why? So you can start that interaction. You can start that learning process. So something can rub off on you and you can save years upon years of time by finding that little hack, by little thing going forward. So it is your job to find teachers. And you must find teachers. And to your last question, if I'm teaching anything, again, I have products to sell. I have courses to sell. I have books to sell. I have free videos that I have put online. I have free articles that I've been writing since I got published in 1999 the first time around.
Wow.
So that's like more than 2 decades. When I was 19 years old. But that's me doing what I'm doing. Does not matter. It's your choice. It's your decision to make that who you're going to learn from. So there are people by God's ultimate grace who watch my videos, and there are people who buy my products, buy my courses, buy my trainings.
Right.
And they choose, they decide to learn from me. So I'm like, okay, you can go and watch my YouTube videos. And if you take anything from it, whether you like it or not, I just taught you
True.
something. Whether you like it or not, you are now my
Hmm.
student because I gave you something that you like. I watch your video. If I get something nice from it, I may not like it that I'm calling you my teacher, but hey, you're my teacher.
Hmm.
Now I owe you something. Now I'm grateful that hey, whatever and however, but I got something from this guy. So yeah, I am effectively a teacher in that sense because I'm
Hmm.
sharing things and I'm hoping that people who are trying to find these kind of things will find these kind of things.
Hmm.
So yeah, teacher student is what I like. Mentor mentee because the mentee word sounds weird to me, so I don't use that. But yeah.
Great. And on that bombshell, I think it's the best time to ask our listeners and our viewers if they like anything out of this episode to share, at least share it across in your network. I would love it if they would subscribe to the
Yeah,
channel. It helps a lot. We are on all audio streaming platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Angami here in Middle East, and just Google Podcast. Just subscribe and share across in your network. And if you learned anything, and if you'd like to comment, I would love it. Reach out to Mohammad Khan. He does tremendous work, amazing guy who will just go out of the way to help you to share his secrets. Well, they're not actually secrets when you've shared them all across,
yeah.
but just reach out to him. Mohammed,
I
before
love that Kung
we,
Fu Panda. I love that Kung Fu Panda line. I don't know
huh,
if you watch cartoon animation movies, but Kung Fu Panda is one of my favorite movies.
it really is.
Uh, and the line is that the secret is that there is no secret.
There is no
So
secret, right?
it's a secret, but there is none.
There is nothing, right? So before we wind up today's episode, Mohammed, why don't you please share your social profiles with our audience,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
they can reach out to you? We'll have all of that in our episode show notes,
yeah,
but we would love people to reach out to us, to Mohammed, and then see you next time. Mohammed,
yeah, yeah. You can head over
over to
to
you.
momekh.com. That is momekh.com. And that's where we hang out. We have a community of about uh, almost 10,000 people now, alhamdulillah, email subscribers and people, creative
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, people who want to be better than they were before, people who want to convert their hobbies and passions into an online business. And it's a journey. I'm in no way an expert. So my invitation is to, join someone who is already doing what you are trying to do. So I can learn from you and God willing, you can learn from me. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for being on the show. And guys, we'll
It
see
was
you in the
a
next episode.
pleasure. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.